Guess what day it is? Yep, it's Thursday, Thursdays with Maurice. It's actually my favorite day of the week because I love talking to this man. And I'm so glad that he's in my life and that I can share him with you. Today, we've got lots of exciting things to talk about. A few plans I have, but as always, we'll just see where the conversation goes. Because between Maurice and I, we never quite know where spirit's gonna move and what's gonna come up. But what I can promise you is that it's going to be not only entertaining, but enlightening. You may hear a lot of things like, oh, I remember that. Thank you for the reminders. Yes, I know that. Or, I haven't thought about it from that perspective. So, anyway, I know that this is a blessing. It's a blessing to me personally. I think it blesses Maurice as well. And the blessing is shared with you. So, here we go. Welcome, Maurice. Welcome back to Thursdays.
Glad to be here. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Ah, thank you so much. So just before we got on this call, I had something that's on my mind. So I went to try to do a short video. And as you know, YouTube shorts have to be under a minute. So this topic I'm trying to squeeze in under a minute, and I'm having the darndest time doing it. And the darndest time trying to get that message condensed because it's just I feel it's really profound and it's really important. So I kind of want to launch into that and see where it takes us, Maurice. And this has to do with building a personal legacy of wisdom. Because I was thinking very specifically this week, talking about you to some people I just met and sharing the Rebel Crone and Thursdays with Maurice. And we have in the world we have right now is a world that's really bereft of a spiritual understanding of our legacy, our true history, where we are today, how we got here, moving forward. We're beguiled into this thing where the apex of evolution. Where look at our technology, look at all of our fancy schmancy stuff. When we know, our listeners out there and you and I, Maurice, know very specifically that that's a complete fabrication, that we're like stunted into this rinse and repeat cycle, and we're not breaking free of that. How do we break free of it? So this is what I want to run by you, Maurice, is I
Okay.
really feel like we've got to create like a platform of personal integrity based on wisdom that we build off of and that we can share off of. So humanity's got something to, I sink their teeth into, but hold their feet firmly on a platform that we can start growing from because it's constant tearing down. I know we have some ancient lineages still passing through. My spiritual mentor, my mystic mentor, she is a lineage holder of all kinds of very old lineages, which is great, but she's in the mass minority.
Very
Most
true.
of us, are working with personal wisdom and in personal enlightenment, direct messaging, And so how do we go about building our personal wisdom? Because so often, this is the point here, Maurice, so often when we try to share with other people our feelings of truth, our beliefs and stuff, we can be very off-putting, we can be imposing, I don't think people really know the art of sharing. And I say this because this weekend I spent some time with a woman that has not looked into anything, so it's like, where do I start talking about things, and so and I wouldn't talk about anything except something came up and we were talking about health. We were talking about blood types. I kind of went into this thing like, have you ever looked into eating for your blood type? And very specifically because she has challenges in that area, that information, and then she goes, well, I'm a O negative. And it's like, well, so am I. And I go, so about negatives, right? And she's just like, no, I've never heard of that. So we had like some places to go in a conversation. And I'm like, okay, so I had choices like, well, how much do I talk about like the negative theories? And I'll start off with my philosophy on it, and then I want to hear yours, Maurice, because you have many more years behind you, but still in the same place of how do you share, what you perceive as truth to people.
Okay.
We got to be very I think we have to be very careful that we don't oversaturate or we don't impose our
or
thoughts
over,
and feelings.
or overwhelm.
Yes, yes, overwhelm. So it's really to build a legacy of wisdom. What I'm proposing is this you have to be very sensitive to the other person and just feed like a little bit and just see if they bite. And if they don't, then you just let it go. Do not have an agenda. You know what I mean? Let it go. So I'm wondering, like in your life, when you come across somebody, whether it's family, kids, or just acquaintances, like how you approach, because you're full of wisdom, Maurice, and that's why I love talking about you. You're just full of wisdom. And between us, we can like off on all things.
Yep.
What happens when how do you approach somebody that, because you want to help, you want to share your wisdom, but how do you approach somebody brand new you're just meeting or somebody that's not like exposed to stuff? Can you let's look into this different ways.
You're right. Great, great, great. I've always been able to talk to anybody. I've never met a person I could not talk to in a way that was mutually beneficial. But what it is I listen to them tell me where they're at before I inundate them with where I'm at.
Yeah.
I take it in, I make a decision, I make a determination. It seems to be pretty damn successful too. And then I respond to where they're at, not where I'm at. And then and generally speaking, I can insert, just like you suggested, you maybe have information at your disposal that you can share that would be helpful to them. Be it health, or be it relationship, or be it God knows what else. If you know more how to tune a car than the guy next to you, you can make suggestions and say, well, this works, this could work, this could. Let them make the decisions. So don't be making the decision or trying to make excuse me, the decisions for them. Because you got to remember, everybody is walking their own path. They're seeing things similarly, but not identically. So you have to allow for that within them and give them space. And if you have something that which you determine to be valuable to offer it, but don't overwhelm them. You've got to know, for me anyway, it's very important to determine where they're at so I can meet them where they're at. And always they'll tell you if you just shut up and listen.
Shut up and listen. Yeah. Keep
Yeah,
going.
I was just going to say, because people like to talk about themselves. That is something that is rather universal. They want to talk about what they know about and what they're doing, and just allow them the space to do it. And then they'll take a breath eventually. And if they're just there to overwhelm you, you'll see that too. And you'll say, there's nothing I can add to this conversation. So I'll be pleasant and I'll be gone.
Yeah.
Because we're not looking for that kind of a interaction anyway. We're looking for a mutually beneficial one, because everybody has something they know that you don't. I've always found that to be the case. A wise old country boy up in the mountains of North Carolina told me one time, he said, how smart you are depends upon where you're standing. And that's it. That is so damn true. I had all the book education and a certain amount of life experience, but I was not a coon dog hunter. And this guy, he didn't know a hell of a lot more than that, but he sure knew how to coon hunt. No shit. And that was completely out of my field. And his point was valid. Where you are depends on how smart you are. You take a college professor and you put him out in the middle of the desert, and he don't know shit, because he knows all about engineering and history and literature and stuff. But you take a survivalist out in the desert that's thriving perfectly within his or her environment. You put them in a college classroom and they're lost.
Yeah.
Which is the point. So
yeah.
The only thing to really get back to what I said initially was, listen to they'll tell you where they're at, and then you just you identify with you hear them, and then if you have something that can be helpful, then you suggest it and let them make the choice because it is their choice. So
Exactly. It's like, so because this is exactly the conclusion, like as I was like kind of formulating what happened this weekend, how it worked, what I personally do. And I wanted to share that to see if it's helpful to
mhm,
other people. But it's exactly what you're saying. I mean, the first thing you have to do is just check your ego out of it. If you have an agenda, you're in the wrong place. Like, and
correct.
if you feel self-righteous that I feel like my way is the way, then you're not in the place of building a true legacy of wisdom. Because a true legacy of wisdom isn't, for me, it's not passing on like the specific things but it's about opening the doors up so people can find their pathway.
That is to me the more important thing.
Yeah.
You can instruct them if you're an expert at this, that, or the other field or thing. You can take the role of an instructor, and in that situation, you are teaching them. You're the boss. But in a
Yeah.
relationship, it involves two equals, two people that mutually respect each other and are willing to listen to the suggestions and observations of the other. That's what a
Yeah.
relationship to me really is.
Yeah.
And when you have a very, and they're not all intimate, they're social, and you can do that. And that's how you have a pleasant interchange. You both benefit. You both walk away better for having met each other.
And this is how we move things forward.
Yes,
So this is like building the personal legacy isn't about like me saying like I've come to this conclusion. And now I do share, that's one thing I do share my personal feelings on the Rebel Crone, but I never say this is the way it is. I'm sharing my observations, my
yes,
stuff. Like you and I, we resonate. People will resonate with me and they'll go, oh, Lisa, yes, yes, thank you for that. And also this, we're on this same thing. But when I don't really know anybody and I generally just want to be a blessing, like you say, the first thing I have to do is like, listen, if there's an opening in the conversation, I take a little step in and it's like baby food, give a little bit and just see what ignites them. So for this, we got on to like the O negative butt or the negative
uh,
butt. And I'm like, well, do you know anything about it? She goes, no, what is there? Okay. I go, well,
go.
there's different theories. And some of the theories one looks like this, another theory looks like that. And she was like, oh my God, this is so fascinating. So I kind of laid out these different theories. And it's like, look online. And then it kind of opened another door. I'm like, well, you can look online and you'll find all kinds of stuff. But because she didn't do stuff in the whole truther movement, and it's changed so much over the last few years, I wanted to give her a little wisdom about what she looks at. And I said, just know that things are very inundated with truths and not truths and half truths. So you got to
Mhm.
be kind of, just don't take everything, take it all with a grain of salt.
That's
It's like,
that's the wisdom that you're sharing right there from your
yeah,
own life experience. You've plowed through a lot of it. You've gone down some rabbit holes that weren't very deep even, and some of them were pretty darn deep.
yeah,
But you recognized that there's a whole slew of different approaches to any really one subject.
yeah,
So you have to be
exactly.
discerning. And
Yeah, and
that's the wisdom
I didn't go
sharing that
into
you did.
Yeah, and I didn't go into like my own personal thing, but just for our viewers here, I find like anymore, like I'm really, really tapping into opening my channels of hearing and wisdom. So I would have to be very selective and careful what I'm diving into, let's say on YouTube or other channels, where I know if it's edifying for me, if it's building, and if I'm like, oh, and I'm expansive, but then I know when I go too deep or I go into something that doesn't work for me, and I start feeling constricted inside, and I feel
Mhm.
like fear or worry or just confusion or something's coming in that doesn't, it upsets my balance. And I know it's not that it's right or wrong, but it's not right for me, especially right then. And I pull out and I go, I don't get caught up in it. I think that's really important for our viewers is just to really honor your gut feelings about things. And it's not to besmirch or say somebody else what they're doing is is wrong, but if it's not working for you, you can feel it and
Yes,
honor that feeling. And no matter how smart that person is or what they're doing, you need to go and find, that's pull out of it. You can test it later, but it's not right now. And you gotta honor that wisdom. So I shared something about, I go, have you ever heard of what a psyop is? Because it's kind of explaining like the lay of the land on, the internet. And
hmm
so, right, oh my God. So Maurice, check this out. So we're in, our portico, and I have it set up as a little gallery show. We're kind of hanging, we're talking, I'm explaining psyop. And all of a sudden, off in the corner, we've got these displays, but a light like flashed and went out. And I was like, we both looked, did you see that? And I ran over to see if like a light bulb blew.
and blown.
That's
Yeah.
what it looked like. Nothing. All the lights were on, nothing blew.
Huh.
It was just kind of funny. She was like, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. But, so like the main things that I want to help people with that haven't gone into this range, and for our viewers out there that want to, you maybe help a family member, a parent, a child, a sibling, a close friend, and they want to open some doors for them. Because I think we all want to do that. We all want to help out. Is really kind of number one, like Maurice was saying, is just check your ego out, just listen and listen to see if there's an opening there, and somebody's genuinely interested, and feed them a little bit, and then just see if they ask more questions. Sometimes it wasn't genuine, and you say a little bit and they don't take the bait and they go off on something else. Well, don't go back to it. Don't try to make your point. Don't try to push that. Right? Is just like, okay, they aren't interested. Because if they're interested, they're going to ask questions, you
Absolutely.
know, and once they start asking questions, like for me, is to be very careful about never to come from, this is the way it is. So what I told this woman is like, what's helped me in my life is curiosity, is I'm really curious. I'm not going to be judgmental. Just like, and I always like to throw out the flat earthers, because that just for people not into any kind of alternative thought, that one blows their mind. And they're like, that's so ridiculous. How could anybody? So I love throwing that one out there. And I go, for instance, there's people that believe that the earth is flat or it's domed or some other kind of thing besides a sphere
Or
moving through.
it's a round ball spinning in the universe, which is what the standard interpretation
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And I say, what I do is when I'm researching things and looking into it, I remain curious and I ask questions, or I probe into it. It's like, how could smart people think that? So I want to hear what they think, and I don't say it's right or it's wrong. I'm curious, because do we really know? You know, do we really know? It's probably something other than all the speculation out there.
Well, from especially the last 15 years of steady growth within this community, you have learned that skill and learned to trust that questioning attitude very, very much, way more than you did before. The attitude of how do we know, and what is the source of the information? And if you
Yes.
and you have done some of it, and so have I, we've delved into it. We think, wait a minute, this isn't as solid as it was maintained on the surface.
It's
In
so
all
true.
kinds of areas.
Years ago, when I first started looking into like alternative stuff, and I was like, oh, and I'm just taking it all in as like the gospel. And then it was like certain things happen. I'm like, maybe not, you know? And so I have, over the years, I've just gotten, as I know a lot of our listeners, and some that haven't even looked into any of this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of fascinating things online, but I also feel like Maurice, and you'll even know more because you've been doing this longer than I have, is that things have gotten more infiltrated, especially just the last few years,
Oh,
where
that's
the
true.
messages are, years ago, like if I looked, and I have certain channelers that I like to listen to, but they've been doing it for like 30, 40 years. There's a legacy of their message. I can see what community they built around them. I mean, the fruits of what they're doing have ripened. So I can see what it's about,
Mhm.
but now there is like a new channeler every day on YouTube, and all these messages of destruction and prediction and all these things, and that they predict something next month is going to be, and then it doesn't happen. And you know, like you don't, when you really know, you know that you can't say absolutely anything. You can say that there's, a direction we could be going in. There's, different propensities and, trajectories out there. But it's just a different way of, so you just got to be cautious. Bottom line, you just got to be, because I don't want to go into like the channeling thing in particular unless you want to, but you just got to be careful right now with the messaging.
Agreed. Agreed 100%. There's so
Yeah.
many, uh, I want to say hidden, but they're, you can see them, but it's the agendas behind the message.
Yeah.
There's a plethora of reasons why they may do that. Nefarious or just simply monetary. The clickbait kind of stuff that it's shocking and it's oh my God, and then it turns out you see it enough times and you say, well, Jesus, I got to watch for that, or I'm just going to be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Send your energy, send your concern, send your fear, get into the fear that this is going to happen, that's going to happen, the other thing's going to happen, and are all tremendously traumatic some way or other. And if they can, if it like I live on the Gulf Coast, for crying out loud. Every time a weather system starts out down there around Cuba or the Yucatan Peninsula, you got the cones show up, and the cone goes from like Galveston, Texas to Panama City, Florida. Well, my God, that's like freaking, I don't know, 600 miles, 800 miles, something like that. And everybody's on, and the system is all on alert. Go buy your milk, go buy your bread, get water, do this, that, and other thing. The next thing you know, the damn thing just peters out and it's nothing a week later. And
Right.
yeah, sometimes it's real, and you just have to be patient and watch it. And the more if you just trust the authorities, they're leading you hither and yon, and you're lost in their game. And the
Yeah.
real trick of life, and this is what we really need to be talking about anyway. The real trick of life is to find your own center, and not be led hither and yon by this, that, and the other thing. And that just takes experience and paying attention, and you will learn it. You will see it. And you talk to people like you and I who have done this a time or two along the way, and we say, well, yeah, we did that too.
Right.
But we've learned that, wait a minute, there's a lot of chicanery out there. There's a lot of hucksters out there. Not all of them. There are genuine people, but you learn to distinguish, discriminate, if you will,
Mhm.
that awful word that is just neutralized into one little narrow definition. But discrimination is, you have to be able to do that. And the more capable you are of, the better off, the more integrated you become as an individual. And
Right.
that's once again, that's maturity, that's growth. And that is
Exactly.
what we're all about in the end anyway. We're from complete naivety through a whole maze of stuff, which is what we're specifically talking about, this, that, or the other thing, to the point of integration, where you're the boss of yourself as opposed to somebody else being the boss of you.
Yeah.
And it isn't the guy with necessarily that writes your check. It might be the one that occupies your attention all of the time,
Yeah.
that's telling you how to think, telling you what's going to happen,
Right.
and you give up the right of self-determination to them one way or another. Maintain your own personal integrity and don't give it away. Doesn't mean
Amen.
doesn't mean to be
Amen.
mean, harsh, nasty, none of those things. As a matter of fact, you're just the opposite of that.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh my God. It's so true. Oh, that was just a big, big wisdom drop right there. Maurice.
Well, I
And
didn't see it coming.
that's about maintaining sovereignty is what we're talking about. You have to figure out your sovereignty because I tell you who my boss is. My boss is my higher self. That's my boss. That's what I'm working. That's what I'm working for, and that's the only buddy. It's the only energy that I am uh loyal to, the only energy that I actually just say, oh, because I got free will in that relationship, because it's a beautiful relationship of love. So I have free will. But that's where I look to. So I think like, so as we're talking to, we've been really sharing some different levels, to somebody
Yes.
newer on looking into things. If you're with us right now, what Maurice and I are saying is the biggest thing is developing that personal relationship, right, Maurice, so that you do have, I can't remember the exact words that you said, but you do have that ability to start discerning. Because you have to build discrimination, be able to discriminate what's coming in and discerning what that is, but it's
Mhm.
got to start from here.
It does
And then
always. It
always,
does
always.
always does.
Yeah.
Most
And I
people don't
even,
recognize it as such, but that is what's going on. And as you gain solidity in that within yourself, you see it as such, and you define it that way internally anyway. It
yeah,
doesn't mean you walk around as I know everything about everything. It's not that at all. We understand that we don't know everything about everything, but
yeah.
we also take responsibility for passing on what we accept and what we don't. That's the big deal. Taking personal responsibility for the life that you're living.
Mm-hmm.
And we do it, but until we realize that's what we're doing, we don't feel that way.
Right. Well, if we are bequeathed with wisdom, wisdom honed through experience, then then we are bequeathed with it. We need to share. But what we're talking about here is the artist sharing it. It was
Exactly.
like I'm 63 years old, which I've said a million times, but just so newcomers, I'm upfront about my age. I'm not embarrassed on it. And I've earned it.
Darn right
Earned
you
my
have.
years. And so where was I going with that? Okay, so where I am right now is like, their spirit came calling and said, this is time for you to start sharing. You're in a place to sign to start sharing. And that wasn't like comfortable to me, like starting to make videos. I'm getting more comfortable now. I've done 80 videos now. I'm more comfortable with it. But at first I'm just like, oh, that's scary. Like, who wants to listen to me? Who am I? And it's like, no, every day I wake up to make videos. It's just little spirit just going, just say what you think, just say what you know, say what you know. It's not saying from a place that it's for everybody. This is just what I know to be true, and I'm sharing it. So I'm passing on my legacy. We are all like, I feel like that is what we've all been commissioned with and our responsibility, whether it's to, I'm passing it on through the way I garden, the way I tend my animals, the way I talk to my friends and my neighbors, my children, my grandchildren, to my community, to bigger. It doesn't really matter the context, but it's not to hide your light, right? Not to put it under a bushel. Is like, let your light shine,
Right.
but letting your light shine isn't trying to control other people's life or light, is like if somebody's just starting to like blink awake, this is what coming back around what we're talking about is how we can help, nurture them and give them some tools without controlling it.
Well,
You know what
that's
I
what a
mean?
helper does.
Yeah.
That's what a good teacher does. You're not a teacher is somebody that is, yeah, they're passing information. They're initially they start out as the ones that possess the knowledge and they're sharing it, but ultimately they don't want a student forever. They want somebody to grow to say, okay, thank you so much. I can handle it myself. That's success as a teacher,
Yes.
not not just gathering acolytes that'll follow you forever. That's
And this is the
that's
problem
hard.
with cultish stuff, Maurice, and I didn't know
Yes,
we'd go in this direction. I have
I
experience with
didn't
that.
either, but it's
Is like, but this is the problem with it right there, is that there's a doctrine, and that doctrine's shared. Yes, it may be wisdom, and people are, I mean, there's a whole broad range of what a cult looks like. And we think of like the worst of the worst because they come into view, into prominence with media and the news because something horrible happened. You think, oh, how
yeah,
stupid. But there's a
yeah,
lot of variations of it.
yeah.
There's
I
the
can
cult
name
of
two of them right off the top: Evans Gate and Jim Jones.
the two. Yeah,
Yeah,
the two main ones. But there's also the cult of politics. There's the cult of, I'd say like the AMA health thing. There's all kinds of little cult things that you have to like. You first off, you check out your own inner knowing and your own sovereignty, and you just have to like, okay, I'm gonna just follow whatever you say is it, as opposed to like, okay, does it fit for me or doesn't? What part fits for me? So it's like this checking out our personal responsibility and our sovereignty to something. That's never right. That's never right because your path, like I hope with what I'm doing personally, that I can share light. If people want to follow with me, they want to work with me individually, if they want to have a little coach, a little, helping with stuff, great. But it's always about them finding their way with it. How can I empower them? It's not to spit out Elisa isms or Maurice isms, right? It's not that,
Not at
you
all.
know, not at all. God, we live in, don't want that. But that's the difference because we don't have our egos in it.
That's
So the minute,
that's the secret. It's the wisdom is the ego is not the boss. The ego is a tool. And once you actually understand what that means, then you start looking at life like you're describing it. And I am too, for that matter, in my own way. You're here. The wisdom says, be here to help, not to control, not to dominate, not to do. Those are all negative things. They never lead anywhere. Well, they have an end point, and it's never completion.
right? Yes. Oh my God. Oh, that is a mouthful right there. It's never completion. So what is completion? So define for people listening to it, like, what do you mean by completion, Maurice? Because that's huge.
All right, completion. Like Jesus, I never thought of that one specifically. Let me think, because there's more than several ways to respond to that.
Yeah, I know. I
I'll
know
tell you
because
what, it's
okay.
satisfactory. The word appropriate sounds so neutral, but appropriate is also perfect.
Hmm.
So, and it's in the moment that the appropriateness occurs always. That it gets almost back to what you were mussing about last week about we need to be talking about the ever present now. And man, that is so complex. Even for
Yeah.
me, it's complex too because there's so many mental
But that's
possibilities.
completion. But that's that to me, like when you say completion, for me I mean, there's different cycles within cycles of what would be complete. But for me right now is like the completion is the connection is like completion is the not an end thing, but it's the new beginning. The completion is boom, 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 boom. Everything's lining up within a person. So like, oh, okay, so now I got my body, mind, and soul, is connected to the higher spirit. And that's like something's complete there. A completion, and then you can have a completion of a cycle where you set out doing one thing and then it finishes. But for me, helping people, like you said, to a point of completion is to helping people is like where can my message take them to that point of completion where they are farther along that path of connection and I could point them this far and now they'll go and they can do it on their own or they find somebody else that's going to help inspire them to a higher level of completion, right? Because there's no complete, it's not the end of a journey, it's a
No,
complete for this journey and then
it's
there's another one
complete for this moment,
for
but
this
it's
moment.
moment, but moment by moment by moment. That's life.
Yeah.
Uh, 2 minutes ago no longer exists. 2 minutes from now doesn't yet exist. The only thing we got is right now. So make it as harmonious as you possibly can, as opposed to just discordant.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do that? The way you approach, as you expressed it, and you do it. How you live your life, and if you're mindful or aware of it, then you do it more pointedly, as opposed to not paying attention, not just kind of you're not asleep anymore. You're awake. That's what
Yeah.
awake really means to me, anyway.
Right.
You're aware of what's around you, and you're not unaware.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like for me, the word that came to my mind, I'm like writing these things down because when I go to describe and make our bullet points for the show as
Good Lord.
Maurice, I'm like, we said so much. like, how do I describe our show, what we do? And plus, there's such little gems in here. But a word that comes to mind is co-conspiracy. Conspiracy, conspiring is breathing. So it's like life. So co-conspiracy is like, how do we conspire with life? So maybe the conspiracy theories, that's such a misnomer, because a conspiracy theory, which people are trying to bring life to something, but usually it's like going down a dark road of getting people more afraid, more dependent, and of that something's going to come in and save them, and cult of personalities and whatnot. But a true conspiracy is going to be a co-conspirator with life, is like, how do we co-conspire, with the truth? And it's in every now, like you're saying, it's like right now, what needs to be said, what needs to be expressed. And it's not about an agenda. And like, when I was younger, I'm not saying I'm perfect with it, but definitely when I was younger, I had my agenda in the conversation. And, it would be like this. It'd be an agenda because think about when you're younger, you're still figuring it out and you're not really sure. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this is one of the problems is when people come in and they really talk a lot about what they know and you feel very imposing on. I think they're just still trying to figure it out and they're trying to get agreement. Because when you really know, I don't know if that makes sense, Maurice, but when you really know, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Like, I don't have to say it. I don't tell anybody. I can go in a room and never reveal anything about me unless it's called forth, and it doesn't matter because I'm not proving myself. I don't need you to agree or disagree. It matters not. So I don't have to talk about it. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. It
Yeah.
absolutely does. It's like you mentioned in the first one. You noticed I didn't hardly say anything that when I was in your house
Yeah.
the whole time. To you in particular, I might have been, I was casually social if it was appropriate, but I wasn't sitting there saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm important." I didn't do that at all.
Not at all.
That's because I had no inner need to want to do that. I knew ahead. I always know it. I'm in a situation where if it's appropriate, I'll show myself. If it's not necessary or appropriate, and I don't know it intellectually all the time, I just do it. I don't even think about it anymore. It just happens.
Yeah.
But it's a decision. It's a constant decision. I always have the choice. I have the mental ability to know the difference.
Right.
But generally, I've already, I've passed on that when it's not a question to me anymore. So I don't really challenge myself in it anymore.
Mhm.
But I intellectually I can do it. I can do it right now if I want to, but I don't.
Right.
I generally speaking, that's just not the way I run my life anymore. And again, that hell, I'll be 82 next week for crying out loud. That's kind of old, they tell me. It's not the oldest. I see Twitter every day, and there's somebody that just turned 95. Clint Eastwood for crying out loud. People like that. Oh well,
Oh,
just a little personal aside.
yeah, but it's just Maurice, I appreciate that. And the day that I met you, then when we did a little party here
Mhm.
for we did well, Jason and Archaics did a meetup in Santa Fe.
Right.
I had been, online with Jason for years, like when he first started, never met him, came up, and just and interact. And then I offered everybody to come over and I'd make a big dinner,
Yes, you did.
to his entourage. Come over, make a big dinner for everyone. They can hang out at the house and just really relax and all that.
And it was wonderful too, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It was really, really special. And anyway, so that's what Maurice was talking about, is like we really didn't connect. There's Martin, Lidke was here. And so
Mhm.
there was just a lot of personalities and a lot of stuff going on. And at the end of the night, that's when Maurice came up and really just graciously thanking me. And actually just, not even just thanking me, but just acknowledging what he saw in me. It's like the angel in him was acknowledging the angel in me. And at
Mhm.
that moment, it was just like there's like this connection, this higher connection. When I say angels, it's a higher connection. And it's like, wow, wow, because I didn't know. I was like
You didn't see
maybe
it coming.
I didn't see it coming. I just wasn't like, I just didn't see it coming. And it was just like, who is that man? So time, and we've been, and I shared this before, when I first started my channel, who was commenting, it was Maurice was stepping in with just beautiful reflection back. And it was so important to me because, I didn't have hardly any followers. I wasn't getting, not like I have a ton now, but I appreciate every one of you. That, he was really mirroring back to me, which is a whole other thing, is just that beauty we mirror what's right and beautiful in another person back. So we all long for that. So Maurice was sharing that, and I was like, wow, and then it was just like, just a divine inspiration. I think my little angel was just like, idea. I just want to interview Maurice. And then it came, I'm going to do it on a regular basis because I'm selfish in that sense, is I want to talk with Maurice every week. And I also want to share you with a larger context, your wisdom, because you're not going to be the man, Maurice, that's going to go out there and grab a microphone and share a message like that. That's not how you're built. That's not your path. Mm-hmm. And yet, your path is that of the soft warrior, is just that, just really, sharing where it's needed, just letting your light be according to the moment and where you are and what's right.
I trust I'm always where I need to be when I need to be there. I just trust that.
Yeah.
And then I'm somewhere else. I have, in a way, I do live a rather mystical life, but nobody can tell it from the outside.
That's so funny, because like, people didn't know that about me, what a mystic. There's people who have known me for years in my life, and they do not know that side of me at all, because it was very precious. It's the most sacred and precious part of me. And I just kept that whole inner journey, all the work I was doing, the internal battles that I'm fighting and trying to gain my freedom, my sovereignty, that was so private and personal that I didn't share that, and so it's kind of funny, is I feel like it's me coming out of the closet, starting to do this and starting the Rebel Crone is, and now I find, like, even with my group of like my very close women friends, that I speak from my authentic self, my mystical self, because I'd hidden that. But now it's like time for me to just, because that's my truth to who I am, and things just come out. But it's, yeah, I'm just kind of going, I'm not sure where that part of the conversation is going, but it's just about authenticity.
That's a sign too to me. I take that as a personal sign. I recognize that. And you said it actually a couple of times in that last little bit. The reason it's happening is because it's time to happen now. It wasn't a year ago, and you weren't doing it. Now in your own mind, you didn't, that was not even a consideration. But maybe in your higher self's mind, it has a bigger plan potentially. It can see into the future. And maybe all of these personal questions we have and decisions we think we are making are already made, but we don't know it from our perspective. Mm-hmm. So we think we're still in control of everything, of the decisions we're making and the situations we find ourselves within. And maybe it's all a setup for all. I mean, this is just maybes. I don't have the ultimate question to that. But the more I walk anymore, the more I think that's the case, actually.
I think so too.
Personally, though.
No, I think so too, Maurice. And the power of that is just coming clearer and clearer into my being. That the real conspiracy I want to be a part of is like my higher self, trying to get the lower self, trying to help steering me, because you know what I mean? Is help to steer me, because like there is a plan in place. There is a reason why I incarnated, why everybody came into the world in this time slot as the specific people we are. And we all have a different reason. And some people, it's not to wake up. Some people is to like really wake up. Some people it's somewhere in here. And it's not for us to decide. That's a soul contract between that person and their higher self, so we don't have to be concerned about with other people, whether they're getting it or not getting it. That's not our problem. Our commission is, are we getting it? And I really feel like there is like this plan, yet we have free will within this plan. and that's, that we can say yes or no to it, but there's like the highest road with it, and that's the road, as I'm getting older, it's like I really want to go on that, like, it's the road less traveled, but it's the harder road, but it's the easier road for us because it's the authentic road.
That's a funny thing. You find out, you just said it too. You find out that actually is the easier road, but it sort of doesn't look like it when you're not on it, or you're contemplating, or you just started out. You say, well, geez, I'm different than everybody else. So there's something, and then you question, am I right, or is everybody else right? Well, typically everybody else is going to tell you we're right, you're wrong. Hell, society is structured like that way.
Oh yeah, you got to be
The more you
super
walk
courageous.
that road, the more you say, it's it's like all of the memes that we see, posted on Facebook and Twitter too, for that matter, to a degree. You've got all of the chickens waiting in the hen house or in the yard, saying, and you got one rooster or one other chicken saying, no, I'm leaving, and they say, what's wrong? He says he's bad, and they say, but he feeds us. Well, that the net result of all of that's the mass awareness. And you're not, there's something wrong with that massive awareness. And that's part of the discovery that we have gone through all of these years. It's a very simplified version because we actually deal with the everyday realities that we interact with, which is usually people and things happening around us, events. It's not just a cartoon. It's, to us, it's a reality.
Right.
There is a bigger picture, but we're not in the position to see it from that bigger picture. What we are in position to do is to recognize that it exists, and then it opens up, and do we see it completely perfectly? No, but as time progresses, we continue in this kind of approach to life, if you will. It comes back in a positive way to you, and you see, wait a minute, this really fucking works.
Yeah, it's so true, Maurice. The proof is in living it.
Yes.
And if you're not sure, test it. Test the spirits, test the path, test the way. And I did through all my journeys and having like mentors or gurus or things out there, I was like, all right, what are they saying? And I applied the things that they said. Now, some of them, as I applied things and I gained wisdom, I looked like they're not doing it though, That's like, I'm moving on. There's just like I also came to like heads with a lot of leaders. Like I've been around. I've been a total pain in their arse because I would do the work and then like, but wait a minute,
You find out that they weren't actually authentic. They were working a game, and there was a hell of a lot of wise statements made that attracted you in the first place. They were demonstrably true.
Yes,
and you didn't know them, and they
exactly.
informed you of it. So they were basically instructing you in some of the unknown arts, if you will, to the general population. And that you say, damn, that works. Damn, that's pretty good.
Yeah, but that
In
person
the
can't
end,
they can't take me farther because
no.
that was their limit and I could see their limit and I
There
wanted
you
to go
go.
farther, and I'm like, okay, next, where is it now? Where's the highest truth I can find out there? And I always just been like looking for it. If I find something that, what is it? And then I test it. I test it by adopting it and trying it and doing it. And then it's true or it's not true. And I have to tell you, all the times where I felt like there's a truth there and I adopted, it was absolutely, it's like, boom, I just grew. And then I probably outgrew, not probably,
That's the deal.
I
You
did eventually
outgrew it.
outgrew that teacher or that, mentor. And, it should be no big deal. So there we come back where we started from, right, Maurice? Is if
Mhm.
we're called to share wisdom with somebody and it's going to help lift them up, and it may be lift them up. We don't know what that is, but it just not
No.
have any agenda. Let them be on their path. What they need from us, encourage them, sharing it. And then they can go there, they can go there, they can go there, they can go up, they can go down. That's their journey, is not to have an agenda. one of the things I live by is that you can't care more for somebody than they care for themselves. Like I can't want somebody to be awake and find the truth more than they want it in themselves, right? And
Absolutely.
that's where the problem comes in. If you want it more than they want it, you're in the wrong place then. You're imposing. And that's where you have to be sensitive. Like you were saying, you have to listen. You have to listen. Like, what do they really want? Do they really want to hear this? Do they really want to know? So you give them a little bit and you see if they go, oh, more. I mean, I was always one of these more, more. Tell me more. Tell me more. What is it? What is it? Like, I want to know. What do you say? Some people don't really want to know. And it's obvious because you give them a little bit and they just blah, blah, blah. And they're off there. And it's like, that didn't land.
Well, you learned something there too. You got wiser in the process. You got more skilled in the process. You say, okay, that's a clue that I
That's a
didn't
clue.
really see before experientially. So that's part of your life journey, doing that and learning, perfecting your own self, which is what you're supposed, what you're all about in the end anyway. What each and every one of us involved in this video. Actually, you and I are talking, but there are people listening,
Yeah.
and they're listening at all different kinds of levels. Generally speaking, it's on the same page as we are, or they wouldn't be tuned in.
Right.
And there's probably somebody out there and said, well, these two turkeys are almost there. That's
Hey,
always
but
a possibility too, you know.
leave us a comment. I mean, like we're like I was like Maurice and I are going with the flow. And it's like we go there, but we could go there, we could go there, all that. And leave us a comment. Share your wisdom with us. Share you have a completely different point of view. We are not arrogant or egotistical about it. We're like, share. I love it. You know, I like all of you. I try to tell people like share your comments about it because I have like people share things like, yeah, and if you read this book and this perspective, that I'm like, wow, that's good. Or thanks for the reminder, you know, because we can't share everything. We're just
Of
going
course
with the
not.
flow right now. We're kind of sharing the things that really are igniting us and things we're passionate about and our experience. And, you know, and if it's helpful, the whole thing is to be helpful. Well, the whole thing is I selfishly enjoy this time.
Yeah, I do too, actually. So that's
And
what
if
we
it
chose
helps
to do in
you,
the moment.
yeah, right. If it helps you, great. But I'm enjoying the heck out of me talking with Maurice. So I hope you enjoy it too. Oh my God. But there's something you said so much. But there's one thing that caught my attention, a little light bulb went off, was that and not that long ago, I was still like I want to understand it all. I'm gonna pull it all together and I just want to understand exactly what's going on here. And exactly like, you know, and anymore I'm kind of like, oh, that is so tiring. I'm so tired of trying to figure it all out. Is that, you know what? And I'm not going to figure it all out. It's not to be figured out at this range. You know, we're in this certain density. We have this certain physical vessels that we are limited. We have governors on it, right? We can only see this much of the light spectrum. We can only hear this much of the auditory spectrum. We can only perceive our senses. There's caps. Now, some people, the caps are extended a little farther out, you know, and they can see things. They can see auras, or they can hear this or that. And, you know, they have like some, you know, presciency in different areas. But for the most part, there's so much more going on, but we're in this container. So when you're
Right.
talking about completion, we're in this container. I want to complete this container. I want to make it full. You know, then maybe the parameters will expand out, and they have over time. They've expanded out. But there's going to be a limit being in these physical bodies. And I'm cool with it now, Maurice. I'm cool with it. You know, in fact, I'm like, I'm just going to right now in this moment, how can I be the best me? How can I enjoy my life the best? And how can I, you know, just be in harmony in that place of completion of who I am right now? And it's okay. It's enough. It's more than enough, you know, as opposed to like, I'm always out there seeking understanding, seeking truth. And oh my God, it's kind of exhausting.
You know, there's an old apocryphal story I read, and I've actually seen it a couple of times through the internet exposure for the last 25 years. It has to do with in an airport, a man was close enough to a older woman and a younger woman, and they were standing together, but he heard what they were saying, and they looked at each other and they said, "May you always have enough." And then they parted ways, and one of them went, the other one stayed. The man walked up and he said, "I heard that." He said, "What did you mean by that?"
Mm.
And the woman said, "Well," she said, "one, that was my mother, and she's going overseas, and she'll never be back. I'll never see her again." And she said, she said to me, "May you always have enough." And I said it back to her, and effectively it means no matter what happens to you in life, you always have enough. And that's a point of view that is not often expressed in modern society, because it's always, I never have enough. Whatever I have, it ain't enough.
Right.
So you're constantly pointed to getting more, acquiring more, acquisition, prosperity, whatever, how they define it. More joy, more this, more that, and the other. But if you walk around with a sense that no matter where you are, you have enough.
Wow.
It just changes your attitude and your feeling toward the environment, the life you are living. It is so much more peaceable. It doesn't mean you don't, once again, the implication is, well, that means you're just going to sit back and twiddle your thumbs. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means you're going to do it with a sense of fullness, not of a sense of inadequacy.
God, Maurice, that what you're saying is like so profound, because that's trusting life and it's trusting where you are right now. We have to be able to rest in and trust where we are. It's perfect. Not that it's perfect, but it's perfect reflection of where we've been, where our heart and minds have brought us to this moment. And we have to just really rest in, okay, this is what we have is just right now, right? And it's enough. Now, if we want, but we can choose now how we want to move forward, so we choose it wisely and we choose it with purpose, but I feel like part of the game that's been imposed on humanity is to keep people out of feeling like enough's enough and feeling, being in the now, because it's a powerful place. Yes, I have enough right now. I'm at peace with that. Doesn't mean, like you're saying, I'm not going to do anything, but it means I can build off of this and I'm going to choose. And yeah, so it's just like that. That's like profound. So part of the game is that we're kept out of that. It's always not enough. Nothing's right. This is wrong in my life. They're always looking at what's wrong with things as opposed to what's right with things. And we can't build off of what's wrong because it's it's a lack. Like, how can you build off of a foundation that doesn't exist? Because it's wrong. There's nothing there. You have to build off a foundation of what's right, of that something's there. And if you think like, I have enough, what I have in my life is perfect right now, it's enough. What do I build off of that? Right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, man, that is something that has been like something I'm currently working with. Is repatterning that and reminding myself that, whenever I feel like that my life isn't like what I want it to be. It isn't like, oh, and I get all that. It's just like, no, Elisa, it's you. Remember, you have everything you need right now. You have enough. In fact,
just take a moment and look around. You're in a position where you can say, I have enough at the moment. Doesn't mean it's the same enough that you're going to need tomorrow or a year from now, but it's enough for now.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of a serene place to be. It's not all disjointed and worried about external threats of whatever nature, and they're not all physically threatening. Some of them are psychologically threatening or emotionally threatening, or you name it.
Yeah.
But for the moment, as you sit right here, right now, you have enough, don't you?
I do. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Do. And then you can be grateful for what you do have. And you can't build, and that's the foundational, that's the foundational feeling that life can actually work with you. Your higher self can co-conspire with you.
It does. That's the thing I know. Grateful. It literally does. That's what I know for me anyway. It literally does. And it's the more I rest in that, the easier it gets, and it's pretty freaking easy right now.
Yeah, that's you're talking about earlier about like how easy like the road less traveled. They say like the hard, challenging road is actually the easy road. I think it's only hard and challenging because we don't relax and release fully into it. Is when
Correct.
we're still holding on to other stuff, then it's like you're trying to
Hmm.
go down that road. Where if you go down the road of your authentic self, it should be the road of absolute ease because it's you. You're being you. It has
Yep.
nothing to do with anything out there. You're just being you. And yeah, so it's and I
You
can
see
and
it. You see it, and you just said it. You said it really well too. And I know a lot of people got what you said in that little short phrase. You you actually trust that within yourself that you are sufficient to yourself. You don't need the scrum and whatever the other word is in German, whatever the confusing world is out there. You really don't need that. You use it. It's a tool, but your real solidity is your own personal. We call it integrity. That's one of the words we use to describe it. But it's your center point. That's where you're most efficient, most effective, and at most at peace. And you can be active as hell doing that. In athletics, they call that being in the zone. And when
yeah,
people are in the zone, man, they are so active that nobody, well, most people can't believe that they actually did that thing in front of
they
that they
can't
just saw.
what they can achieve, it's
Yeah,
zone or flow. They use the word flow nowadays
that's
too.
another word
It's
too.
being in
Yes.
the flow with it. But this is what we were talking about early on, Maurice, is that just the thing of discernment and discrimination is
Mhm.
you have to what is you using as your measurement stick, right? And so your measurement stick is about that authentic self, and as you refine that down and you get more and more into your authenticity, then you measure stuff against that. You're in that place of peace, that harmony. It's like, and then when things come in, you're like, all right, how does that make me feel? Is it working, moving me forward, or is it disrupting that?
Mhm.
But you can't discern, you can't discriminate things unless you have your rod of authenticity in place. And great, we're all in various places with it, and it's going to refine down, and sometimes it refines down because we go off on a tangent and it's like that didn't really work. You get stronger, you come back more solidified
Well,
in
that's the growth process I keep talking, bringing up along the way. You're split until you're not split, and most people stay split all of their lives. It's always that competition. And well, I want to walk that, what you and I are talking about, but I got this, that, and the other thing. That means you're split between the two. You're not solid.
right.
Now you may see the wisdom of what you and I are talking about, but you've got all of these other distractions out here. Bills, commitments, all these kinds of things, and they've got you split with. Well, I'll do this when I have a moment to myself where I remember, but I still got to go out into the battlefield all the time and fight my battles. I'm saying that the more you walk that road of inner solidity, the more those battlefields don't become battlefields to you.
Mm,
They may look like a battlefield to the person standing right next to you, but to you, you're dealing with it in a different way. And
mm-hmm.
that's something you recognize within yourself, and then you just become more and more that way. It doesn't, like I say, you can be active as all get out. You
Mm-hmm.
might even be in a fight. Not that you need to, but people do get into physical confrontations with people, but there's all kinds of ways of responding. I never was a martial artist, but I've read about them a lot along the way, and I've seen things. The true martial artists, the best ones of them, the masters, if you will, they come from the place that you and I are talking about. At least they say they do, and they're pretty darn proficient in their skill sets, but they don't come at it. They come at it with a different attitude than just might makes right, or skill. I will just, the normal ways of interacting, the lower level ways. The higher level is
Yeah,
you
they
can
will.
actually
They'll
prevail in a fight if you come from that position. If
Well,
you
they look
you
to
make,
deflect it, right? They're looking to deflect the energy and not take it on and deflect it out there. But if push comes to shove, and they have to fight, yeah, they'll bring it down.
they
They'll
have the
bring it out.
skill set to do it,
They
but
do it, but they
that's a last
avoid it.
resort. That
The
is
last
a last
resort.
resort.
Yeah. And that should be our last resort too. And I think the wiser we get, the more we know, like we just don't engage in those battles. And we talked about that last week. I did a little short video this week that's gotten a lot of hits on it. And it's like, how do you get off the, like, life is feeling crazy and all this stuff is going on, and you feel like, I'm just hanging on. Like, what do you're like, you're in the battlefields. Like, how do you deal with that? And I'm just like, you let go and you step out of it. That's how
I
you
saw
deal
that
with
one, and that was very good, and it was right too.
And
Correct.
that's right. And so we just step out of it. And some of the ways we can step out of it is just emotionally not engaging in it, not taking the bait. Like you're talking about the baiting, all the stuff that's going on in social media, and all of this is just don't take the bait. If it doesn't resonate with you, if it disrupts that core, if you're feeling disruption by looking at something, you're getting it's getting your ires up, your hackles up, or whatever. That's when just step away. You're being baited into a battle. You're having, like, the martial artist is coming up to you and it's just like in a fight, and you're like, oh, we're gonna fight. No, just take those energies and move them away. Just don't engage with that, and because you don't
Well,
have to.
no. I'd say you ran into a guy, Mike Tyson, a boxer. He's pretty well known. He's older now, but in his prime, that guy was indomitable by
He was
anybody.
badass, yeah.
But I'll tell you the truth, that was within a ring. Now, if you ran into Mike Tyson on the street, the likelihood is you would not be getting into a physical altercation with him anyway. But say he was half cocked or drunk or something and he wanted to take you on. Well, ahead of time, the guy could physically kill you if he wanted to.
Oh, one punch.
But you don't, but a wise person would find a way to exit the situation before it came to that.
Right.
And that's what you're talking. That's a man's way of kind of looking at what you just said, and in response to the idea that you're in a confrontational situation. Well, you can continue to confront on the level that it's being thrown at you, or you can divert it and walk away. And you have the skill set within you to be able to do that if you tap into it, if you allow it to flow. And
And the
that
more,
that
yeah.
higher, I'm telling you, that's that higher self flowing through you as you with greater wisdom, greater understanding, greater knowledge, all of those attributes. If you walk that path, that is what happens. You do it naturally. You don't even have to think about it. It just freaking happens.
It's just the way it is. We're just reporting back to people, reporting back. And as you become the Mike Tyson of your life, you become the heavyweight hitter in your life. Then the less you, like, somebody comes up like, yeah, I'll fight. You're like, yeah, I know I can take their head off with one blow, but I'm not even going to engage with them because I don't need to. This is ridiculous. Now,
Correct.
let me share with you from a woman's point of view, because
Okay.
herein is like the challenge is because we don't typically go to bed. It's not going to be more fisticuffs, but there is a power struggle among women that's very insidious, and there's a way women do the battles, and they do it a lot of time. Well, a few different ways. One is subversively, and that's through gossip, and we undermine and we do through gossip other women in particular. That's how we do our battles. Is like, we have something like we feel threatened by Susie Q out there, and we don't like her. We're just like, we want to we want to do the battle with her. And how do we take her down? Is we just start undermining her. It's like that little seeds of gossip, that are powerful and insidious. And it's just like that is as bad as going in and, throwing punches. But it's actually worse it's worse because you're doing it subversively, and then all of a sudden you're tainting everybody's view of her to your point of view. And, oh, she did this and she's this and that. what I ask women there, what when you're going to pass on and talk about somebody else, pass on information or thoughts or whatever ideas about that, what is your goal? Why are you doing that? Why are you saying that? We like before we even start taping, we were very cognizant of some things, and Maurice and I were not going to talk about certain stuff, because it's not our place to talk about it. We're not about undermining. We're about uplifting. We're about keeping the field clear. If somebody is struggling, and their struggle could be that they're acting like complete jerks, but that's a struggle because they're acting like jerks on something. Instead of going in and it's like, oh, they're such a this or that, and you're feeding into what's wrong with that person, which women like to do. You're feeding what's wrong with that person. Let's just shut up. Just shut up. Let that person be. And if you want to talk about them, let's talk about in a place like, I see Susie Q. She's struggling with something. Let's do something nice for her. Let's do something uplifting, or keep your mouth shut. So women, it's like this a whole thing of how we fight the battles. We got to stop doing that to each other. Part of, I think, the agenda of keeping women out of their power and their true strength is pitting women against women, and us feeling jealous, us feeling insecure, us feeling like this competition when we're not in competition. We're sisters. Like, let's help each other be more powerful. Let's help each other come to a place of peace. Let's nurture each other. Let's be a place where other women can come and like rest their heads and feel like, supported. So like the sisterhood, I'm all about the sisterhood. Now, I haven't always been in my life. In fact, early on, I stepped away from a sisterhood because as a little girl in grade school, I'm telling you, this little game that was going on in my grade school that I think is indicative of the bigger game is every year there would be a popular little girl, and all the little boys would have a crush on that little girl. The other little girls would get jealous. So within a certain period of time, all the other little girls would start talking about, and they'd pit everybody against her. And then pretty soon everybody hated her, and everyone mercilessly picked on her. And I saw that happening. And then all of a sudden, it was my turn. I became the little girl that all the little boys liked. And I knew what was going to come. It's like, what's coming is they're going to hate me. Just wait. How quick is that going to happen? I'm going to get picked on. And sure enough, came right back around, and I got picked on. The little girls would be like, we're going to wait for you after school. We're going to beat you up. And I had to literally walk home through cornfields. Now it's all subdivisions now. I had to walk home through cornfields, and I was scared to death. And I would run and I would take another route home because I didn't want to get beat up by all this little pack of girls. And I'd get home and I was so ashamed and embarrassed that I couldn't even tell my mom, And my mom was going to be like coming on a field trip that was happening. And I was so embarrassed to have my mom be on the bus because I thought that the kids would pick on me in front of my mom. And then my mom would know, how bad I was. I mean, it was deep shame came in. It was so painful for me. I couldn't talk about it for years. I felt so bad. But that was like that's the seeds of it. That's the seeds of jealousy, of pitting against each other, and all of that. And I didn't trust girls after that. I did not want to be around, in fact, a group of girls. I wanted nothing to do with it. I like learned the lesson I learned from that is stay away from groups of girls because they're dangerous. I reproved that later on in life. I have a core groups of friends, of girlfriends that I totally love and I trust them and we support each other, but that's not always the norm, right?
Apparently not. And
Yeah, so I just been going off on that, Maurice, but it's just, there's a different way with women that we really need to reignite and support the sisterhood, for things to change.
Yeah. Men are not quite that way. I'm sure a
No.
little of that goes on, but it's nothing like in the feminine variety.
No, I know. And it's just kind of like it's a different way, but I really, as the Rebel Crone and is working to help uplift women. And I think a lot of times as we get older, like we let that stuff go. So this is more addressing younger women there, is just to just catch yourself with it. And I'm not saying you're doing this overtly like happens with the youth. There's still a lot of competitiveness and measuring against physicality and all kinds of things, But we just still need to be very careful of that as we speak about another woman or another person, that let's make sure we use our words in a way of supporting
Well,
each
words
other.
actually are more
Well,
hurtful, can be more painful and hurtful than physical violence anyway, at a point.
yeah,
There's a point at
absolutely.
which it's different, but they hurt the heart.
Yeah. And I
And
think this, Maurice, the point, I think this has been that's an offshoot of the degradation that has happened to femininity and the female power. I
oh
think
yeah,
there's
it's
yeah,
definitely a negative, but it
yeah,
exists. You know it from life experience. I guarantee you, the women listening to it, looking back on their lives wherever they find themselves right now, can identify with the authenticity of what you described. And
yeah, yeah.
even as a man, I can tell you, I've seen examples of that, not nearly as personally, but I've seen it. You know,
Yeah.
that's one of the characteristics. You said there were ways, plural. That one I knew about. What about all what's something I don't know about?
Oh my gosh. You probably know like all the little ways of it. You
Uh,
know, I think that the power thing, there's a woman taking on the mantle of masculine power and masculine authority.
yeah,
And so women can use that, but it comes out in feminine ways different. It comes out in like even like in the workplace is women trying to position themselves, they'll try to position and use authority. It for me, it seems like it's always like a subversive way. It's not direct. Men tend to be more direct. They just and they get it out with, and it's like, all right, it comes to a head, and we either punch it out or fight it out, and then it's like done, and then you go have a beer, and it's over with. With women, it simmers. We're simmerers on it.
oh yeah.
We
That's
don't have a way of like clearing, like we haven't learned the skills of clearing our hearts out with things so that we can just like get over it and get on. And I know that that's one of my challenges is really letting go of things, because you may like, you ask any man that's been in a relationship, is like, she remembers everything. It may
yeah.
be 3 years later, but she's going to bring up the time that I the no, but that's misusing power. That's misusing our memory. Why did we latch onto that? Why won't we let that go? But there's a part maybe where it's helpful that a woman can remember things because we can keep things safe and balanced and in a way that we can, keep the household community, whatever, we're aware of things, but we're not using them to remind somebody of their faults and their failures. We're not using it as a control like that.
I got you.
Um,
Since
yeah.
you mentioned it, that is true. I just had forgotten it, but that is true. Men have they have a broader ability to actually let go of things that you're describing, and they don't hold grudges as much.
You
They don't.
know, it's they don't. Okay, so this was interesting. I had my friend Maria Zayas, who's a doctor of psychologist, and she came visiting a while back, and I did a couple video interviews with her, and one of them was about heart math, the Heart Math Institute,
Mhm.
and heart brain, heart mind coherency. So she had this little test and software that you can buy from the Heart Math Institute, and it's measuring coherency, and so Mike and I both did it. Yeah, and so the more coherent your heart waves and your brain waves, the more coherent they get on the screen. It measures it and it shows like a video. And the video
Mhm.
is there's a little garden, and then things begin to grow as you become more coherent. And then you're getting real coherent. And then there's a rainbow, and then there's a unicorn, and then when you get to full coherency, then all this like stuff's happening. And then so she did this thing. So she got us both to go to coherency. We both did really fast. And then she said something about us to think about something that makes us angry, or I can't remember how she did it, but so we went incoherent. And then how quickly can you come back to coherency? So she did the thing to Mike, and you could see like all the stuff starts to fade away, and then boom, it came right back. She did it to me, Maurice. I had a hell of a time coming back. It was like once I disrupted my heart rhythms, coming back to coherency, I had to work really hard, and we didn't give it enough time. We had to go do something else. I was still trying to get back there, but it really threw me off, and I thought, oh my God, that's so true. Is like when I get thrown off my game, it's something I let something in, I can really spin off with it. And I think that may have something to do with feminine nature or feeling nature too, is we really get caught up in the feelings, men not as much, your feelings, you're not as sensitive to them, and maybe not as controlled by them. So Mike could get right back in control. I had a hell of a time getting back in control.
Okay, on the positive, the ability of women to feel more deeply and more sensitively that you just said is absolutely true, by the way, as far as I can tell anyway. that's a hell of a good strength, but it can also be a just an equally and opposite tremendous curse.
Yes,
Which is effectively
exactly.
what you're talking about. And it works. It's a different kind of mix with men, but what can be our greatest strength can become our greatest curse too. It all depends on how we respond to it. And if we're victims of it and don't have any control over it, we're generally being led by it and not going down pleasant paths. And part of the growth process is to recognize, like, once again, recognize it, listen to people that have already gone, that's what mentors are for, or one of the good reasons that they're for. They can tell you, of the potential pitfalls. And otherwise you're just being batted about, and you never find anything. You're just being a victim of society. And the whole idea is not to be a victim, to gain self-control, to gain self-sovereignty.
Yeah.
To the degree that it's even possible within this human form. And there's a wide range. I can tell you, there is a heck of a wide range of human experience possible in the feminine world and in the masculine world. They're not identical, they're different. And here we go again. It's back to the same thing. Individually, you can survive and be self-sufficient and prosper and all of that thing. But together, it's even greater. It's two different things working together harmoniously. But finding that seems to be quite difficult. But when it happens, if it happens, wow, all I can say is frickin' wow.
Well, I found in my life is the more I've taken care of myself, done my own personal journey, and coming into a place of that coherent, that completion, that in the moment of just having personal integrity with who I am, then it's so easy for me to connect with other people. And it's such a joy. And I don't have like drama and trauma in my life of people, I find a way to blend into connect with, with the highest and best of them. And if there's nothing there to connect with, then they're not in my life. It's just, there's no drama around it. They're just not in it. You're right. And it's,
well, a man can do that too in his own, but like I said, if you can find a partner that's of similar nature and walking the same path, apparently that does not happen often, but when it does, it's just wow.
And that's like a whole other conversation.
Isn't it though?
We're not going to go there today.
No.
No, we probably should wrap it up. We've been going for a while now.
Okay.
We could keep going and going.
I don't even know where we went, but it felt good.
It did. No, I feel like there's this beautiful trajectory where I just started out about, how we can share our wisdom and build a personal platform, a legacy of wisdom that can really start changing and shifting the world, because we're building off of a level, and building as opposed to this rinse and repeat of all the horrible cycles we're caught in right now. So we have our own personal responsibility. And then, Maurice, we really went into, finding that place inside. I mean, it's all about that. Every conversation comes down to, walking that path, finding that path for yourself, allowing other people to find it for themselves. We can help guide and inspire, but really you find your road, your way, with your higher self. And as you really start walking that road, it becomes easier and easier and more joyful, right? and more rooted in the now and the blessings of what we have. And then we can really, I mean, I feel like that's the platform of building the legacy of wisdom and truth in the world, is each one of us just doing that, doing
The
that.
thing
Then
I
we have
would
something.
add to that is that
Mhm.
each and every one of us have that potential possibility available to us. Now,
Yes.
whether we pursue it or not is up to the individual for whatever reason. But I will tell you, it's not an impossible journey.
No, it's not. We're designed for that. And I think too, Maurice, is we have to remember of honoring the sovereignty in every person.
Correct.
And so when we're with people in life and they're not going to wake up, don't hold that against them.
No,
Who cares? Who cares? That's their path. They're not meant to wake up in this life. They're accomplishing something else. Who am I to judge what they're here to accomplish? Somebody's ready to wake up, but they're only going to go this far right now. Good. You just back off. Don't over, just see how you can serve and help, and give people what, be sensitive to what they need, what they're looking for, see how you can help. Hands off then, and I think if we just really have like this compassionate, safe place for people, this gracious place of sharing our truth and our wisdom, that it's going to allow other people to find their way,
it'll sure help them.
Oh
It
my
won't be a
gosh.
hindrance, I'll tell you that. It will not
Yeah.
be a hindrance.
Yep.
Whether they grab it or not is on them or up to them. And that's not for you to determine or decide. You'll find out down the road as it's appropriate to you. You may never find out. Lots of times you never do. Every once in a while you get, it gets shown to you and you say, that's really turned out well.
Exactly. That worked out, or it didn't, and it's okay. It really is okay. It's like, what did you say is that, may you always have enough.
Yeah.
That's, I'd love to like close with that one, Maurice, because that's so beautiful. My dear friend, may you always have enough. What a blessing. That is such a blessing. Oh my God. I'm not going to forget that one. In fact, I'm going to do some posts about that one because that's really profound.
Yeah. And I read it on the internet a couple of times. And it struck me the first time I heard it. I said, that's a good one.
That's a good one. That's a deep one. May you always have enough. And if you need a little more, and if I can share something to you right now, I will do that.
That's right.
But not to share too much.
Well, that's where wisdom dictates and boundaries prevail.
Totally, totally. Okay, my dear friend, I'm just going to close with that one. May you
Okay,
always have enough.
that's a good one. I agree.
Okay, everybody, peace from within, and we will see you next week.